I'm going to talk about today. I'm actually going to tell you a little bit about my story, my backstory. So as people join, I'm just going to welcome them in. But today we're actually going to talk about the beauty and the pain of the backstory. That's why the title of this group, it actually came from Kristen, one of our other members, and just shout out to her. She talked about the master class and or just having a room where we can teach about the power of pain and shaping our lives and finding purpose and embracing faith for growth and surrender. But today I'm going to actually speak about it through telling the backstory, right? As people come in, we're going to hope that we have a group where we can actually engage in the chat because I'm going to do a lot of things in the chat. And then also I want to give a shout out to Circles. Barb, I know you're not new to this place. Welcome, Gina. Welcome, welcome. And those that are listening, because this will be recorded for a availability later after this session, they will make it available via Spotify. So I want to give a shout out to anyone that's listening. Welcome, Christina. So for anyone that is joining, you already know that Circles is actually addressing the world's loneliness epidemic. And essentially, they want to connect people to small groups of others who actually are dealing with similar life challenges, right? So to date, and this is above this, and this is actually probably like a month ago. So shout out to Erod and all those others that are working behind the scenes. We've actually supported over 150,000 people on the Circles app, which is where you can find on-demand 24/7 small audio groups and master classes such as these that are moderated by peers with lived experience, as well as professionally led rooms with mental health experts from a plethora of, I want to say, backgrounds. I call it our interdisciplinary team. So welcome, Dolores. And so just real quick, again, my name is Denard. I know I've seen many of you in each of the rooms, so I know no one here is a stranger, but because this is a recorded session, I want to let everyone know that I am one of the group facilitators, and then I'm also just happy to be in this space with you all. Now, we're just going to jump right into everything. Just for the agenda for today, I'm very excited because this is one of my skill sets, and we're going to talk about it, but I'm actually going to recap the last masterclass. Barb talked a little bit about missing it. So Barb, I'm going to recap a little bit of it because I think it connects to our conversation for today. Welcome, Erica. And if you all don't mind, I know we know each other at different places, different times, but in the chat, do me a favor. In the chat, if you can just drop where you're logging in from, and so that we can actually start our connection and I can actually also make sure that we can use the chat. So I'm using a different headset today, so if I do chime in and out, let me know. But for the most part, Barb told me everything's going well. So I want to welcome you all. Now, last masterclass, for those that are joining, let me see in the chat. Okay, I can see. All right, West Virginia, Barb driving around the U.S. Okay, fair enough. And NJ now, New Jersey, Boston, Massachusetts. So I'm actually, my sister-in-law, she's from Boston. And I made my travel down there for the first time. And I'm like one of those individuals that have travel anxiety. So when I got to Boston, the traffic made it no better. It actually made it worse. So I don't think I'm going to return anytime soon, Dolores. Gina, shout out to you, Callie in the building. So I'm actually from Fort Pierce, Florida, and I'm currently residing in Winter Springs, Florida, which is about 2.5 hours away from my original destination, where we and my lovely wife, Olda, and our 2 sons, I call them the Dirty Diaper Disciples. Welcome, Jill. We reside in Winter Springs, Florida, in our first home. So I'm excited to actually be sharing this first session that's going to kick off our series of storytelling, right? And you see the title of the room. It's pretty simple and plain. Journey from Pain into Purpose, right? So our last masterclass, welcome if you're joining. I'm actually recapping, and then we're going to do an icebreaker. And then afterwards, I'll tell you a little bit about why we're here, and I'll set the lay of the land, context, and then you'll hear a little bit more of my backstory, and hopefully that can actually give you some, just a little bit of the fortitude and strength that you would need to share your backstory. So, all right, so last masterclass, Barb, this is for you specifically. last masterclass, we actually talked about from the aspect of John Pfeiffer in his book, Build for Tomorrow. And we were talking about the revolutionary question that he talked about, which allows us to focus on our roles instead of our roles, but more in the aspect of our values, excuse me. And the question he said on a presentation on Blinkist, and shout out to Blinkist. If you've never used Blinkist, I think it's a cross mixture between Audible, Shortcast, podcast, and everything. It's an amalgamation of that. So it's like the Cliff Notes of Audible. Let me put it that way. That's the best way I could put it. And so they did a webinar, and in the webinar, he asked a revolutionary question, which was, what doesn't change when everything changes, right? And for me, for those that are joining, this response was that I want to be able to, and this is my life purpose. If you ever want to hear my life purpose, it's going to surely show up in this way. I want to restore people's faith in God's voice and let them know that a friend is listening. So essentially, if I were to break it down, and Barb, we were just talking about this actually, thank you for those that are just joining. I want to create a safe space, but I want to move it beyond safe space. In the Bible, there's a word called shalom, which actually people use as greeting, but it means well-being. So holistically, I seek peace for you holistically. And so I want to shift places from safe spaces to well-being spaces by instilling hope and inspiration for you to be your authentic self, right? So John Pfeiffer says that no matter if you go through a life extenuating circumstance, your job career changes, we should still be able to speak value into any circumstance because we are not just what we do, we are who we are. So his line simply is this, and he's actually the editor-in-chief in Entrepreneur magazine, but he previously was a reporter, and that became mundane. And now he believes his life story value is encompassed in this one line. He loves to tell stories in his own voice, right? Which brings me to the topic of sharing your backstory. I believe that everyone has an opportunity to tell their stories. And as you heard me earlier, for those that just joined, I believe in creating a safe space, but a well-being space where people can show up as themselves and share their stories. So I believe actually also in the church language is testimonies, but I also believe by sharing your stories, you can connect to each other on a deeper level, which I believe that's where the palpitations of the heart, I have this saying that only the heart can reach the heart, right? And so that's how I believe we find hope and inspiration in the midst of our challenges. So that's why this room is titled Journey from Pain into Purpose, right? So as we begin talking about the importance of sharing stories, I want to just take a few minutes to do a quick icebreaker. Anybody that knows me, I'm very big on connecting. I'm a connector. So I'd like to actually just to think about the following questions, right? And I'll put it in the chat after I read them out loud for you all. Okay, I see a couple of people. Erica, okay, yes. If you can't hear anything, just quick tangent, technical difficulties. If you run into any technical difficulties, just log off the app and try to join right back in. And just keep me posted in the chat if anything's going on technically, and I'll try to make sure that we reach out to Circle Support to help us with it. But let's jump right into our questions, all right? And our questions are pretty simple, right? It's going to be what or who uplifts you, right? What or who uplifts you? What or who gives you strength? What or who helps you get through hard times, right? I'll put it in the chat for you. Now, here's what we're going to do because we're on a time limit, right? I want to only take 1 to 2 minutes for you to think about these questions, and then I'll invite you to share at least one response in the chat. Okay, so it's 7:10 p.m. Eastern, my time. And if you're listening to this later, it's whatever time you're listening to it. But we're going to take 1 to 2 minutes to actually think about these questions. And then I'll give you, again, just only respond to at least one. Respond to at least one. The questions, again, are what or who uplifts you. If you're driving, you probably can't see it. What or who gives you strength, and then what or who helps you get through hard times. All right, so we're going to just give a moment of silence. I'm going on mute right now, and then I'll check in another minute, okay? Welcome those that just joined. please stay tuned to the chat for our first icebreaker, and then we'll kick off with something I recently saw on Instagram that shocked me. All right. I see some responses coming in. Awesome. There's a theme already. It's faith-based. So Jesus, Christina gives a shout out to Jesus to all the questions. And again, the questions are what or who uplifts you? What or who gives you strength? What or who helps you get through hard times? Beth says God and this group and other ones. All right. All right. Looking for some more responses in the chat. Looking for some more responses. Want to give you at least, we're going to go 10 more seconds. Dolores, I'll say God, God, God. So we have a faith-based room already. Okay, so we're in the faith-based room. You all know that you tickle my fancies when you do this. So this is definitely my worldview. So I'm actually in accordance with you all on this as well too. I see Lady typing. So I will give 10 more seconds, 10 more seconds. And what I want you all to see, actually, the theme that you're giving me is really bright-eyed and clear to me. It's already a theme of hope, right? And although you all are sharing in a broad way, because we're talking about God, we're talking about Jesus, right? But it's broad enough, honestly, it's broad enough for us all to find ourselves in, right? And that's what I like about what I'm seeing thus far. And what uplifts me, let me read Diana's. She says, spending quiet time, reflection, and meditation. So in the quietness of solitude, this is what uplifts her. Time to actually connect back to herself and the things that are around her, right? So, but this is the same thing that we need to do when we share our story, by the way, right? We need to take time to reflect. And actually, I will give my top 5. I won't jump into that yet. I will give my top 5 in order to tell your backstory. But Diana, you're spot on already. Number 1, I would say, is to reflect. Right? We live in a world that's on autopilot. And so we're constantly being bombarded by stimuli, and we don't actually take forced pauses, right? Forced pauses in life simply look like when you get to the stop sign, when you're actually about to swipe in for work. And I know that's old school, but anything that causes you to actually stop in the midst of your tracks to consider something else, right? And so we do need some forced pauses, but we also see this universal thing, God, hope, faith, right? That connects us. And that allows us to share our stories in a way that others can find that hope and inspiration that I talked about. Lady says, my animals uplift me. Jehovah gives me strength, and love gets me through tough time. Oh, so I hear this aspect of love. All right. So catch this. And remember, for those that are just joining the room, we're talking about how we can actually use our backstory. We're not talking about story yet. Our backstory to help teach us the power of pain in shaping our lives, finding purpose and embracing faith for growth and surrender, right? That's our backstory. So let me share with you all. Thank you all that actually participated in the chat. And then I will give a chance for us to audibly share as well. Welcome those that are joining. So just walk with me real quick. So I was actually on Instagram, and I'm actually a millennial, so Instagram and Facebook is really how I connect to things. Haven't yet gotten to TikTok, so don't judge me. But I was on Instagram, and there was this posting by Millionaire Steps, and it featured Lewis Howes in a conversation with Donald Miller. And let me tell you all what they said that really blew my mind. They were discussing how villains and heroes have similar backstories, right? And now that I'm thinking about this, I might create a question on the fly for you all, because I don't know if you all are DC or Marvel, but we're gonna check in the chat. I'm not going to say which one I am, but I'm going to ask a question on the fly based on this. But they have similar backstories, right? And both have experienced pain in their lives, and heroes often being orphan. So villains and heroes have that similar backstory, pain, and probably some experience with being orphans, right? Villains, on the other hand, have been portrayed with like physical scars, limps, speech impediments. Now, I want y'all to think about your favorite villain, right? And this indicates that they have a traumatic past. However, here's a crucial difference. Shout out to you, Maria. Here's a crucial difference between the two is how they respond to their pain. So in the video, Miller discusses how villains, when they have been pained, they seek revenge, right? They seek revenge and they say, the world hurt me, so I will hurt you back. The chief cliche says, misery loves company, right? So if you're not following, this is where I want you to pick up. Now, the other heroes would actually use their pain to help others. So the heroes, the distinction here is important for us to learn and about how we tell our stories. The heroes essentially say that I will not let my pain define me, but I will make sure that no one else suffers the pain that I went through. And I intend to make a difference in the world. So therefore, your backstory actually gives you an opportunity to choose. And this resonated with me so deeply, right? When I was creating this masterclass, because when you're thinking about journey from pain into purpose, it teaches us exactly that. Your backstory helps you to identify with the not just with the pain, but the power of the pain that shapes your life and actually allows you to find purpose and embrace faith for growth and surrender, right? Now, I want to ask this question. Let me go back to it real quick, actually. Let me just do a quick poll in the chat. I wasn't prepared for this, but I am now. So let me ask this question in the chat and just drop it. And based on what I see as the most, I'll make my question based on that. So are you DC or are you Marvel? Are you a DC or Marvel fan, right? Just put DC or Marvel in there. And then I'll try to create my next question based on that. All right. So I'm going to give you at least 30 seconds to put just DC or Marvel. Are you a DC or Marvel fan in the chat? Okay. First person, Diana, DC. Okay. DC. Okay. That's going to help me. Let me see. We got 30 seconds going. All right, now I will have a follow-up question for you all. Let's see. I'm waiting. Marvel. Okay, so we have a tie. All right, 20 more seconds. And for those that are listening, wherever you're at, Lisa says none. Okay, respect. I knew that choice was going to come, but we're waiting for a tiebreaker, so I'm going to give 10 more seconds. Christina's coming in. None. Okay, we have none. 10. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Kind of backwards sometimes it's hard, right? 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, Marvel it is. Okay. For those that may not know, I'm just going to actually invite the Marvel characters. Thank you, Jay, for breaking the tie. So now remember I said that they have similar backstories. And let's do this on the spot real quick. Which Marvel villain and hero have the most similar backstory? Which Marvel villain and hero has the most similar backstory? Which Marvel villain and hero have the most similar backstory? And I'll put it here in the chat, actually. I have to type this out. Just give me 1 second. And I'm doing this on the fly, but I believe it's going to connect real quick. Give me 1 second. And I'll give you all a minute to respond in the chat. And then I'll probably ask either Jay or Maria to chime in as well, since you all you're fans of it. So we'll see how much of a fan you are. All right, backstories. All right, so here's the question. It's in the chat. Let me make sure I spelled villain right. Okay, which Marvel villain and hero have the most similar backstory? All right, so it's in the chat for you all. And let me see who's responding. I don't. Lisa said, Lisa, I know you said you don't actually favor any. All right, let me do this. Since I saw Jay respond to break the tie. Jay, can you tell me what your possible answer would be? Are you able to unmute, Jay? No. Oh man. Oh, that's Marla. Okay, Marla. Oh, welcome back. Hey, Marla, are you able to unmute to say which one, what your possible answer for these are? No. Uh-oh. Hello. All right. Let me see. Let me.
Wow, sorry. I'm stuck. I'm frozen. But I'm not that big of a fan that I know all the characters in that.
Okay.
But I know a lot of them have the dual character of evil and hero. So they started off one way and ended up another way. But I don't know exactly what characters you're referring to.
I'm gonna give it to you because this is the most common one. You'll be like, yes, I should have known this. Magneto and Professor X. Magneto and Professor X. They were actually, and this is the interesting thing, Marla. They were born into the same hostile world of mutants, right? Remember, their parents were killed, and this was like their parents were killed, unfortunately, in the Nazi concentration camp, right? And they both saw the horrors firsthand, right? And how humans could inflict on mutants and vice versa, right? So Professor X's parents were also killed, and they were then he was saved by a group of humans and raised, and they taught him the goodness of humanity. But Magneto believed the only way for mutants to survive was to rule over humans, right? So they had a similar backstory, Magneto and Professor X, but they both experienced the horrors of prejudice and discrimination, and they both actually dedicated. Actually, this is another similarity to their backstory, to helping mutants. However, they had a different approach to getting to the goal, right? And so this is why I think this is very important to our conversation today, because I'm going to start by talking about the importance of backstories. See, a lot of us, especially like church individuals, we like to talk about our current challenge, right? But I am going to submit to you that your backstory is equally important. For example, your backstory is the information that comes from, like, it comes before the main events of the story, right? Because before we're introduced to Magneto and Professor X, we need to know the backstory. Even before you get to Wolverine and how he connects to them and things of that nature, we need to know the backstory. And in addition to that, it's the stuff that happens to you before the story started and explains why you are the way you are. So when I share this with you, we know a little bit as to why Magneto is the way he is, right? And this literally blew my mind. Similar backstory, right? However, different approaches. And so here's a question. Let me ask this question just so that, and I'll just take one or two individuals actually. What is the importance of backstory? What is the importance? So I'm telling you what the backstory is, and we're going to talk about the importance of backstory. So I'm telling you the backstory essentially comes before the main story, right? And it tells you why people are the way they are. But I think there's more. So what is the importance of backstories? And I'll look for one or two hands to share. And don't be shy. Don't be shy. I promise you all, I wanted to give you something new today, and I wanted to give you something to think about, right? So when you leave this space, you don't leave saying that I don't have anything to share, right? We all have upbringings. We all have lived experiences that shaped us in the way that we are, right? So what is the importance of a backstory? I don't see a hand yet. Okay, I see Lori. Thank you, Lori, to help put the puzzle pieces of our lives together. Okay, so, and essentially they shape us, right? They shape us, right? All right, so I love that. So that's one response. That's one response. Let me see if I have another hand here. Uh-oh, looks like my screen is freezing. No worries, I'm just gonna keep rolling till the screen comes back up. And again, if you all are running into some of the issues that I'm running into, I apologize. We're just gonna work through it. Just continue to stay the course with me. So that's true. Not only does it connect our lives, and I'm looking at nature versus nurture forms our character. Oh, you're gonna have to say more, Marla. Marla, I need to hear more about that. What do you mean? What do you mean? Are you able to unmute?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you
Just
go. Go
did.
ahead.
It's freezing.
I'm so sorry.
So our experiences and our bonds with our parents and our family shapes who we are. All of our
Mm,
experiences. It shapes
mm.
the person that we are up until today.
Wow. Wow. So again, you're bringing in the aspect of like, not only does it connect us, right? In the sense, but it actually, it essentially the human behavior environment shapes us, our upbringing, the way we've been nurtured, the cultural sensitivities, the traditions, everything basically compiles into this amalgamation of who we are, right? And so it also, what I would suggest to you all, it helps make your story more believable. See, if you don't provide any backstory, you leave the listeners wondering like, why are they even like that? Right? We then jump to these conclusions. We try to make our own story of the story. So yes, it connects us, but if we don't have a backstory, it may not be relatable to anyone. And that's why I believe before we tell our stories, we need to flesh out our backstories because people may not be able to understand your motivations. And you're sitting there in your church, in your community, in your workplace, and you're like, man, I don't get it why no one gets me. Right. But actually, let me suggest another thing. Yeah. I'm going to suggest this. So I also believe first, it helps your story to be believable, right? So that's how it connects us, that nature and nurture, right? We all have upbringings, but I also think it adds a depth and complexity to your story, right? Because essentially, catch this, Marla, that the nurture and nature doesn't remain the same, right? Different environments actually are conducive towards bringing out different things in us, right? So if a person was raised in a toxic environment, like having, and I'm not trying to activate anyone here, but I'm just using this as an example or an anecdote. If you had a parent that was like alcoholic and abusive in the very beginning. Okay, Beth, I see your hand. Go ahead.
I didn't want to take over what you were saying or interrupt.
No, you're fine. I'll get back to it. Go ahead.
Okay, so I think I hope I'm doing this right because I've never done this before. So my backstory is I was abused on multiple levels growing up and in my marriage. And so instead of becoming bitter, I chose to become better and more resilient in life. But also in the same right, I've been too compassionate and too much of an empath to where I accept toxicity towards me because I was used to being devalued and treated less than nothing. And so I accepted that as my reality and my personal story, which now I know is not true as I'm healing those deep toxic wounds that have been from the very beginning, from when I came on the earth.
That's definitely, and you saw hearts. I don't know if you saw that, Beth, as you were sharing, but that's definitely how we connect. And first off, thank you for sharing your story because I think you used the phrase like from bitter to better, right? And I talk about that sometimes in my story, right? Because when we remove the focus off I, right, and we can actually include others into it, then we can remove the I and we can exchange it for the E, right? And better, right? And so essentially what you're saying is actually going right in line with what I was saying. So thank you for speaking up. It changes over time, but what you're saying, it also shows how our experiences shape us. So you're landing where Marla said, right? But here's another thing. We don't just share our stories just to share our stories, right? We share our stories because we want to be heard and we also want to connect to other people. Like right now, you all are listeners, right? And so, and I saw Lori was like, wow, this makes sense. And that's essentially what that's why backstories are important, right? So let me recap this again. Christina, I'm gonna take your hand shortly. I'm gonna just because I want to get into the presentation. But the three things that we see is that it helps us make our stories relatable and believable. It adds depth and complexity to your story, right? Because it changes over time, right? No one wants to hear like, man, I've always been this way. I've never changed. That story doesn't invite people for hope, right? But that may be your story, right? So part of this will be as we go through these series, and I will be inviting storytellers. I'll be inviting social entrepreneurs to tell their story from pain into purpose. And sometimes I might be inviting you all, right, to this space. But essentially, it helps us to connect with listeners. And if you don't remember anything, I believe your backstory is why the heart reaches the heart, right? So now we've talked about the importance of the backstory. Now let's talk about how you tell your backstory. And Christina, I haven't forgotten your hand. We're going to get to a point where we actually share. And I promise this. Let me actually just say this before I get there. No, I'll wait for it because I promise I will say my top 5 or top 4. I'll give top 4 and I'll leave the 5 for next time, actually. But the backstories, the other thing I want to say to you all, because we will talk about the framework of storytelling, backstories actually can fit in any part of your story, right? The goal is just to get to it. You need context for the content, right? It can be used to set up the conflict. It can be used to explain the character's motivations that we talked about earlier. But for me, it provides context to the events of the story, right? So the backstory is very important because it helps you make the story believable, relatable. And actually, let me get to it. So here's what I would say my 4 tips are, right? And I would start with these. Number 1, and someone said it earlier, and I'm forgetting who, but I believe it was Diana, reflect, right? Reflect. We need to take time, even in the quietness of solitude, to actually remember our stories, especially if you've gone through trauma. One of our natural responses to trauma is to suppress and to forget, right? And so we end up not telling ourselves the true story. So that's why number 2 is very important. Be honest about yourself and to yourself. You don't expect to be honest with someone else before you being honest with yourself, Rochelle, right? That's the starting point. Be honest with yourself about yourself. And you've all heard me in some groups, like we're talking about being assertive. Don't sugarcoat your experiences. See, in church, what I see people tend to do, they like to share the overcoming side, which means when I'm getting out of my situation, right? But all parts of it is important. Share the good, the bad, the ugly, and the not so pretty, and the prettier, and share everything, right? So be honest, right? And then be vulnerable, y'all. This is probably one of the greatest strengths. And thank God for Brene Brown, right? Because before then, it was looked at as something we only did out of weakness, when it's probably your greatest strength, right? You get to share your emotions, right? We're human beings. We have emotions. That's what helps you to connect on a deeper level. Like information can pass through the neurotransmitters and synapses, but when you share from a vulnerable place, it actually reaches the heart, right? And the 4th thing that I would submit to you all, the 4th thing, in my opinion, after you reflect, you be honest, and you're vulnerable, hey, share it. My brother says nothing good was meant to be kept to yourself, right? And I'll share number 5 next week because I want to keep going. Before I tell my backstory, because some people know it, I'll share a little bit about my backstory to show you why it's important and why we're here today as well. I want to take Christina's hand. Christina, what did you want to share with the group? Give you 1 minute before we jump into the backstory because I want to make sure we get to the end. Go ahead, Christina.
Well, we also share the story to let people know that they're not alone.
Ooh.
And we're in it together.
Ooh.
And I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I just want them to know that they're not alone.
Yeah, we're better together. Listen, Christina, I'll take a quick tangent. And sorry, you all. I lost my voice earlier at the last part of last week. So just bear with me as I go recover my voice. But Christina, you reminded me there was a anthropologist in the Kalahari desert, and he was with the Kalahari Bushmen. This is a story you'll hear. It's told numerous times, but he was trying to figure out like how their living styles were and things of that nature. They were always in groupings. And so one time, of course, the men would actually go and traditionally go and actually try to catch things for the group in the village. And they came back happy, right? And he's bewildered because he comes from this individualistic mindset, like and evidence-based. And he's like, y'all didn't catch anything, right, Christina? And the head honcho responds to him and says, yes, we didn't catch anything, but we didn't catch anything together. And that's why we're singing, right? And so that's essentially what allows us to connect. Whether we are not connecting, we're not getting what we want to get out of life. If we can get each other, we feel seen, heard, valued, right? But let me quickly tell you all my backstory, right? And so, Christina, thank you for reminding us. It also reminds us that we are not alone, right? And that's why Circles is actually here. We want to beat back against the winds of this epidemic, right? So, Denard, here's my backstory. I was born in Fort Pierce, Florida, raised in a Haitian household and culture where certain professions were seen as more valuable. If you're Caribbean, you know what I mean. The expectation was that I would become a doctor, engineer, or a lawyer. Anything else was not considered real work, Jill. So catch this, Lori. I decided, I don't know what came into me, Lisa. I decided to pursue a career in ministry. And it was met with a lot of resistance. But Barb, I knew this was God that called me. I knew, Queen. As a child, I never imagined that I would become a minister or even what I'm doing now, a group facilitator. However, after a series of heartbreaks, I found myself on a wilderness fast to hear God's voice more clearly, where God revealed to me my true calling. This was during the time I was an administrator at a large university. And during that time, God revealed to me three things. Y'all got to catch this, Jillian. He said that you are called to the ministry, and number two, delayed obedience and disobedience. Welcome, Charles. And then number three, he says, he clearly told me who my future wife was. And she just left my office that day. Just left my office, right? And I won't tell you all the rest of that story. But after that, I knew that I had to follow God's calling, no matter what anybody else said, no matter how anybody else felt. So I go across the way, I see my manager, and I quit my job at Florida State University. And I enrolled at Andrews University to study theology and social work. Now, lady, it wasn't easy at first. I had to learn how to live on a shoestring budget. Had to deal with the disapproval with certain family members and friends, but never gave up. I knew that I wanted to fulfill my calling. And for some reason, Diana, I just knew I had to keep going. And I'm honestly going to tell you all, I am so glad I did, because now I'm in a position to help others like myself, who may be going through similar experiences in their darkest hours, but they are amazing people. And I get to share my story with them and show them how possible it is to turn your pain into an opportunity. Like I was able to turn my misery into ministry. See, that's why I believe my backstory is important, because it shows how heartbreak can be a catalyst for growth and transformation. See, when I was heartbroken, I lost everything. Some people know my story here. I even thought to take my life in 2008. But through my pain, I found a deeper relationship with God and a new sense of purpose. I also learned to listen for the heart of others. That's why I can create safe spaces, you all. It's not because I have these giftings or the competencies from what they taught me in school. That's part of it. But I really seek to hear the heart. And that's when I realized I wanted to help people so they didn't go through the same pain I experienced. So I believe essentially everyone has a story to tell, but they need a safe space, a well-being space to share their stories and heal actively from their pain. So I believe we can do that by sharing our stories. We can help others overcome our challenges and become stronger people, but we cannot forget our backstory. The backstory is what allows us to connect with people. Actually, I've done a lot of talking. Let me just ask a quick question, actually, before I continue. Because I believe everyone here has a backstory, right? If you live long enough, you have a backstory, right? So here's my question. How has your backstory shaped your identity and your purpose? How has your backstory shaped your identity and your purpose? You heard mine, right? We're family now. Don't leave me hanging. Don't leave me hanging. So I'm going to take one or two individuals that would love to share, and I want to hear from someone new. Don't be scared. Don't be shy. This is your space, right? You all heard from me in my story, my narrative. To be honest, God was my hero. For a lack of better understanding right now, he just gave me clear purpose. When I thought I was useless, when I thought that the only good thing in my life was a relationship, he gave me purpose, right? To be able to help others heal from that same pain that I don't want anyone else to go through. So that's why I'm sharing my story. So one or two individuals, and I'll try to put this question in the chat. I'm just thinking on the fly because I really want us to be able to share. But how has your backstory shaped your identity and your purpose? Let me see if I can get back to this. It's taking too long to actually get to see if there's hands. So if I'm missing you right now and your hand is up, just go ahead and speak. And I'll just hope that we're respecting others as they're sharing. No hands. Okay. So we're going to be a quiet group. I think everyone's still processing. All right. That's fair enough. I'll take it. Kim's like, yes. Lori's like, yes. Yes. I promise you all, listen, I knew this was something God wanted me to do. It was without question. Because, go ahead, Kim.
I said, you just going. I don't know. I'm new to this. I'm glad about it. And to hear a man speak is really good, really genuine. So from a man's point of view, when a man is doing something out of the norm, and a woman picks up on it, why, when you announce to the person whatever it is that they're doing, they go into denial? Does that make sense?
Total sense. All right.
Okay, so let me see. I'll just get right to it. I've been married for 30 years. So when a man starts changing, a woman already picks up on it. Everything. So they're gonna keep saying, "No, I'm not doing that." I say, but I know you're doing something because you're coming at me in a whole different way. I'm driving, so if we blink out, it's because I'm driving. I had to get out the house and clear my head, you know.
Okay.
I'm 60 years old. I just turned 60 in December. So as time was going on and everything, I told my husband, I said, I'm not going to get old like this. I'm not getting old like this. Nobody's supposed to have that much control over somebody, you know, where they spazzing out and then you sitting there calm, now they spazzing out. I don't get that part. It took me a long time to understand what I was in, honestly.
Go
ahead,
yeah, I love this. So let me do this in the form of one, you know that my big goal is to instill hope and inspiration, right? And I want to say to you, welcome. You said you were married. You've been married for how long?
30 years. Yep.
30 years.
For one man, I only had children by him.
Okay. How many children?
I have 3 sons. And they all from him. We have a set of twins, and we have our oldest. Our oldest one is he'll be 32, and our twins just turned 25. So I'm done. But my relationship with my husband was always. He's an Army. We're Army.
Okay, he's in the Army. Okay.
Yeah, and he's retired and everything. And I got when retirement came, I got the whole, oh my goodness, like, what is this happening, really happening right now? But right now I'm in the place where if it's like I feel like I'm sitting on a seesaw, I'm just waiting for him to say, okay, I'm done. And that's what I'm waiting for. But when I was going through it with him, I didn't understand what I was going through. He would get me angry, and I was spazzing. I said, "You're trying to get me to where I don't have nothing. You're getting me in the place where I won't have anything." It got so bad to where I had to call the cops on him. I got tired of defending myself. Like, you're taking me into a crazy place. And what makes it so sad is I don't have no family around me. It took me a long time. I said, "Oh, I was the perfect candidate for you. I don't have nobody around me." So the mental abuse got worse and worse.
Let me ask you a question, Kim, because I want to recap what you shared with me, and I want to thank you for sharing.
I'm all over the place. I'm sorry.
No, you're in the right place. Let me put it that way. You're in the right place. And then I also want you to make sure that whenever you can, don't worry about putting anything in the chat. If you do need to speak, just raise your hand, and I'll try to get you, because I know you're trying. But there's a couple of things in your backstory I want to pull out, right?
Okay.
You told me you're married to your husband, and you told me that you've been married for 20 years, right?
30.
You told me that 30. Okay. I knew I heard. Okay. 30. And yeah. But you also said you have 3 kids together, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And also I heard that he was in the military, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Which branch?
Army.
I want to say first and foremost, thank you both for your service. Yes. My brother was in the Army and also did 2 tours in Iran. And so I definitely didn't understand it at first, because the Haitian culture is taboo, but I understood it afterwards. But here's what I want you to realize that you just shared here is your backstory, right? When you first started, remember you first started and you said you wanted to ask a question, right? Remember your question, right? But then in order for you to make your question make sense, guess what you started doing?
I started going all over the place.
No. You started with your backstory. Okay. You started with your backstory. So here's what I want you to consider, right? Because I'm not going to be able to answer everything now, but I will tell you this. Just in a brief. You started connecting to other people when you told more of your backstory. I'm gonna tell you why. Because one, you connected to me. Right, because my brother was in the military, and I'm pretty sure there's other people here that's been in the military. But you've also said what I'm hearing is you want to understand why you're actually having to deal with all this in your relationship for after so long, and your fears. But I'm also hearing you're fearful confronting them, right? And you've taken some time to just clear the air, clear your own head, right? And you stepped away from it, right? And the core of your question is like, what should I do? I've tried everything, right? I've tried everything. But you see, when you shared your context of your backstory, it gave us a better sense of what you're dealing with. If I just responded to your first question, I wouldn't understand the nuance of being in the military, right? And having to so many transitions. And then I wouldn't understand the nuance of being married for so long, right? So I really want you to understand, first and foremost, what you just did here is actually shared your story, right? It takes a weight off you. It might allow you to, sometimes it might be reactivating, right? Because we relive the pain of yesterday, today, when we tell our story, right? But what I want you to know is that's the first step to getting to an answer, right? And so in that same sense, and I will tell you, I do have a couple of other groups where we're talking about this. One is on, if I can remember this properly, it's on Fridays, right? It's at 2 p.m. and we're talking about being more assertive. So that's something I want to see if you can join in our audio rooms. I know you're new to this, but we also have audio rooms. We also have forums that deal with that as well. Then in addition to that, we have a multitude of group facilitators and also peers that are working on that. So what I want to say to you, stay the course, right? But always tell your backstory, right? Tell your backstory, because that's what helps us to connect to you. Okay?
Yeah.
So stay the course, all right? So thank you for sharing, Kim.
Thank you.
All right. So from what I'm hearing from, you're welcome. And join this Friday, because I'll be able to be in a better place to respond to your question, okay?
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. I wrote that down in regards to Friday. If I see you on Friday, I'll make sure I respond to. So I want to open up the floor for everyone else as well. Awesome. Again, as you all can see, I just really wanted to you all see on the spot how sharing our backstories can actually help us when we're trying to get the help that we need, right? So let me ask another question. Since we have a quiet group today, right? But it's okay, right? How has pain helped you to grow and transform? How has pain helped you to grow and transform? And I'll put it in the chat, and hopefully it'll let me get back in time. But let me just take 1 minute to see if anyone wants to share. I'll take one or two hands. Just raise your hand.
One more thing.
Go ahead. I'll give you a minute. Go ahead.
What helped me to grow with it was that I don't want to relive that again. And so I started changing my way that I respond and how I react to the situation. I don't want to go through that all over again, because I already know what's coming. But the thing is so selfish. What I would like to say also is, why do you not want to hear what I have to say about the situation? What makes them shut down about that? Because it's true. Is that the reason why they shut down? Because it's true? Well,
there's a multitude of reasons, but we have to know their backstory, right? We have to know their backstory. So, like, for example, you know this better than I. Like, my brother, after he left his tours, he went into private contracting. And Charles, I see your hand. But his backstory was, my brother's the eldest. But he's also, we have a blended family. So I'm giving you some more of his backstory. So he's always felt like he's always been alone, right?
Oh, yeah.
And when he started private contracting, he was not able to reach out to us, but he was in his loneliest moment. And so one moment he was in the trenches of the enemy, right? And the next moment he was praying that he would make it home. Long story short, he makes it home, right? But he still experienced PTSD from that experience.
Yeah, my husband.
Right? Yeah, so his backstory when he was responding to his wife wasn't always was how he wanted to respond, but it was how he was taught to respond in those moments, right? You don't question him because he's had level of authority over certain periods of time, and he's been without his wife for so long, right? Actually, they married after he got out. So what I'm trying to say, his backstory helped them to shape to say, hey, maybe we need some help.
Yeah, it came to that where it got so bad too. I had to do that, but
okay.
But it's like like you said, I need to talk. It's a little bit at a time because it's so much. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's so much, and I don't want to be where I don't want. When I come to him, I'm not trying to attack him. I'm trying to understand. Like,
correct.
Let's talk. You know, I'm not trying. But on his side, it's like I'm attacking. Then I'm defending myself about whatever it is. So I'm like, you know what? I said what I had to say, then I said no more. Because it become a runaway train.
So this is what we're going to do, Kim.
Okay, I'm going to stop. Go ahead.
Uh-oh, I'm losing you. No, you're good. So, Kim, you have to come on Friday, okay? Because we do talk about how to be assertive, but not being aggressive, right? We do talk about that. That's actually where we're so. Okay, so join for Friday.
Yeah, I've been through that when you said don't
join Friday, and we're going to continue the conversation. All right, we'll continue that conversation then. But I want to make sure that we wrap up here with this group, and so that I can get Charles. But thank you for sharing, Kim. Go ahead, Charles.
Oh, excuse me. Just pain. Excuse me. Pain builds endurance. Pain gives you confidence. Pain gives you strength. Pain gives you a sense of being an overcomer, and it's not the opposite of happiness. Pain lets you understand what it is just to be, to
exist.
yeah. So you can have an objective point of view regarding your emotions when you're really not feeling anything, because you can relate to that pain. Um, Pain increases your ability to talk to God when you're low. Pain hurts, but then pain makes you an overcomer. So you can say, I'm a survivor. I survived that pain. So this is nothing what I'm going through now, because I know I've been through that fire. Pain lets you realize a worst case scenario, and that you're really not in it. That you can what you're going through. You've been through that pain. So this is, it's not as hot as that was at that time. So I know I can deal with this. Without that pain, you don't even realize that perspective.
And I love what you're saying. Then we're going to take Jillian, and then we're going to wrap up. So what you're also suggesting, we should acknowledge the pain we experience, but what I also want to add to, but we don't dwell on it, right? Because it means that we need to find a way to tell our story in a way that's both honest and healing. I want y'all to catch those two H's, honest and healing, because that's also important when we're trying to be kind to our backstory. We acknowledge the pain, but we don't dwell on it, right? So that we can get to that overcoming. Thank you, Charles. What are your thoughts, Jillian?
For me, pain is a motivator for change. Like my sister died, and I'm in the middle of a divorce. Like I decided, I'm going to go back to school. I'm getting my master's of social work now, because for a while I had addiction issues, and I was like numbing myself, with alcohol and whatever. And I decided, I can't do that anymore, and it motivated me, all that pain, to find something else to live for. You know what I mean? And going to therapy and stuff like that, that's what helped me. It was just
love that.
Lit a flame under my butt.
No, I love that. Shout out to you for being in the field of social work. I love all my social workers, so continue, stay the course. And I love what you're saying here as we conclude. I believe, honestly, even what you said, honestly, sharing our stories through the pain is probably the most powerful thing you can do, right? Everyone has some hunger or thirst for something, and everyone tries to avoid pain at some point in time, as a child or an adult. So even what you're hearing here, pain allows us to grow and make new opportunities, not just for ourselves, but for others, right? And so what I want you all to consider as we close out today, and know that our next part of our masterclasses will be discussing the different parts of your story, right? Like the opening image. If you've ever done storytelling, it's like the theme state, the setup, the catalyst, the debate, breaking into twos, the B stories, the midpoint, the bad guys closing in, where all is lost, the point of despair, right? But the finale and the final image. And I want you all to walk this course with me, because as we talk about this masterclass, I want you all to become an expert in telling your story through the pain, so that you can navigate and be authentically engaged with your purpose, similar to what Jillian just said here. You all, what I want you to consider as you go, is write down your backstory. Just take 2 minutes today, whatever you have to do, write down your backstory. Ask yourself, what or who shapes me? What experiences have I gone through that have shaped me? What experiences that I've overcome, right? Start from your upbringing and get to the point that you are now, right? And I believe that will allow you not just to connect to others, but connect to yourself even more. So everyone, I want to say thank you for spending time. I want to give a shout out to Circles for giving us space. But remember, your backstory is equally important as your story. Have a great one, everyone. Godspeed, God bless, and stay the course, and ultimately be you. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, Denard.
You're welcome, Beth.
Thank you, Denard.
You're welcome.